What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back to Thrash Reviews, where yours truly, Thrash Maniac 99, continues to review upcoming hard rock and heavy metal albums in the calendar year of 2016, and today, probably in that video I did earlier of the most anticipated albums of the year, this is one of them, Gojira's new album, Magma, on Roadrunner Records. And for those who don't know, Gojira was a band that formed in '96 under the name Godzilla from France, and are pretty innovative for their time as far as combining elements of prog metal with death metal, with thrash metal, with groove metal, mix it all into their own unique sound. 2001 they changed their name to Gojira, which is the Japanese word for Godzilla, and they've put out numerous records since the dawn of the 2000s, including great records such as The Link, which I have in my collection. One album in particular I do want to get in my collection soon, which is considered by many to be Gojira's best album, From Mars to Sirius. Even The Way of All Flesh was a great album. Their last record, which came out in 2012, La Vente Sauvage, was a masterpiece, and now it's 4 years later and we get their new record, Magma. Let's take a look and see what the band has for us this time. So the opening track is called The Shooting Star, and right off the bat, you can tell Gojira has done a lot of changes to their sound. It seems to me that with this record, starting with this track, a lot of the death metal elements have kind of diminished a little bit, and they're focusing much more on the groove metal and the progressive metal sides of the band. The death metal's not really there anymore, and it was apparent from this opening track. They're introducing a lot more melodic elements and also some more dreamy, psychedelics influenced spacey vocals, where Joe Duplantiers' voice is very soothing, and this track was the beginning of what was going to become a little more of a melodic album, but still a heavy album. But let's move on to the next track, which is called SILVERA. Oh my god, this was one of the heaviest tunes of the album. This sounds like old Gojira, but in a shorter format. This is only a 3.5 minute track, and it takes pretty much everything you would expect from Gojira, but like I said, they shorten it a little bit and make it a little more simpler, and it just made for a memorable track. This was actually a music video track for the album, and a lot of people were impressed with this song from what I could tell. I was impressed by it. It has these very heavy guitar riffs and some great drum patterns that you would expect from the drummer Mario Duplantier, who is still one of the best drummers in metal today. But let's move on to the next track, called Stranded, which was the first track released for the album by the band. And this track kind of caused a little bit of concern among a lot of big fans of Gojira who really loved the very complex, heavy tracks from previous records. Some people thought this was a little too simplistic. I thought that the guitar riffage in this song was outstanding, and yeah, the song may be simplistic in comparison to their older material, but it's not a bad thing. Like, if you can make simplistic songs memorable and well written, it's not a bad thing. It's just when you dumb it down and you don't care as much for it, that's where it's a problem. And that's apparent with a lot of, say, newer deathcore bands, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about Gojira. This track is another one of those memorable songs of the album. Very heavy. Despite people saying it was too simplistic, I thought it worked out really well. But let's move on to the longest track of the album, the title track, Magma. Nearly 7 minutes in length. This was probably one of the band's most progressive songs in the sense of it just going every which way possible, but it wasn't a super heavy track of the album. It was more of that melodic side of the band. It's like, but with this song you get the best of both worlds. There are some heavy moments, but for the most part it's more mellow, and the vocals kind of go in between Joe's kind of gruff vocals and those dreamy, spacey vocals that we heard on The Shooting Star. but it made for a memorable song and probably one of the band's best tracks to date. But let's move on to the song Only Pain, 4 minutes in length. Holy cow, you want to talk about some heavy guitar playing? This was certainly it, and the drumming. I can't tell you how impressive the drumming was on this song. This song to me was kind of like, say, Gojira was trying to do their best impression of combining Morbid Angel with Pantera with Tool. But more on the Tool side than anything else. But it made for another memorable song, and it has that very brutal flavoring you get with older Gojira, but with that newer twist to it, with a little more melody involved. And that's how Only Pain pretty much went. So overall with this album, it was quite the roller coaster ride as far as the sound, the emotion behind it, the lyrical content, still with the typical themes of Gojira, all about the environment, problems with the world. I mean, hell, in the chorus to The Shooting Star, I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was something like, if you change yourself, you change the world, and stopping genocide and all this stuff. It made for some powerful lyrics throughout this whole record. And also, like I said earlier, the album is a little more simpler than the older material of Gojira, and the reason for that, I read up on interviews from Joe, the leader of Gojira, saying that because of, in the modern world, a lot of people with ADHD, people can't just sit through long albums anymore, so they wanted to make their shortest album. This was only a 44-minute album, 10-track affair, with songs 7 minutes under. Most of the songs were like in that in-between 3.5 to 5 minute mark. So I could understand where they were coming from with that, but I think some people out there still appreciate long albums. I do, but I can see where they're coming from. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing for this album. In fact, I think it kind of brings together some of those people who enjoy shorter albums and the fans of the old, longer albums of Gojira, and bring them together, and it made for probably one of the band's best works yet. I'd give this album a 90 out of 100. This was a great album, definitely worth examining. Definitely going to talk about this album again later in the year for the Album of the Year list, but where will it rank? That's the question. But anyways, I do have another review planned later to review the new Nails album, but until then, peace.